So, sorry, so this naturally happens whenever, like, and I don't have this happen, obviously, I'm a very small channel, but this often happens when something goes outside of its typical audience group to, so I put out an Elden Ring review that is very, like, mid-range in total. It's very kind of middle of the road, general, like, slightly positive, but it's, like, I can understand if people are tonally interpreting it in a different way, but so I don't think something like this is necessarily directed at my content per se, but I think that people look at something like this and then take it and then apply it to all content, even people who have legitimate arguments that just happen to be slightly similar to some of these arguments. But yeah, I mean, well, okay, one thing, this is honestly an extremely, you have to take a million steps back to explain the fundamentals of what is subjective and what is objective to even get through. For an example, this. Okay. I completely forget how he sounds. Oh god, how does fucking Gideon talk? Tarnished. A word. So you want to discuss Elden Ring bosses? That's not accurate at all. That's just not. I can't fucking mimic his voice. Whatever. All right. So this is like blanket statement, kind of like all people who criticize Elden Ring in any way are immediately wrong for these assumptive, fucking straw man fallacy reasons, like, oh, you complain about this, therefore you must be this, and not have another reason. But like the first one that is most plainly obvious, right, is bad design. Is quote is, I did not enjoy the fight but wish to voice that as an inherent flaw rather than personal preference. Now again, I have a video that I wrote and I'm working on about the difference between subjective and objective, because it's insane how many people don't understand this. But design, good or bad design, is subjective. That is an opinion. Inherently, it's not a mathematical formula. It's not 2 + 2 = good design. It is subjective. It is automatically subjective. If you're talking about something that is subjective, then obviously it's based on your personal preference, your opinion, your subjective position. If you say something is bad design, like if I say, oh, in my opinion, this is bad design, that's subjective. It's plain as fucking day that you're voicing a personal preference. These are the same thing. I just, it's so insane. It's so insane. No shit, it's a personal preference. It's a subjective concept. Here, for starters, okay, first things that I've been getting at so much with my Elden Ring review from fucking dumb idiots who just consume it in bad faith is that I liked Elden Ring. I did not hate the game. I put it as my third, like, in between. I was wavering between putting it as my third favorite or fourth favorite out of all of the FromSoft games. I liked it. I said as much. I explained that I liked it. I explained the nature of my criticisms that I had with it and that they were not enough to make me dislike it. I said that I liked the game, but people are consuming my review as though I'm telling people, one, they're consuming my review as if it's trying to make an objective statement about how other people should feel about the game. Again, subjectivity is automatic. I am talking about a subjective concept. You should have the base fucking intellect to comprehend that I am obviously voicing my personal preference and nothing else. But yeah, to start with, yes, I like the game. It's so baffling that people are like, I can't believe you. This is such a stupid reason to dislike the game. You're blowing things out of proportion. Bro, I said I liked the game. What the fuck? What the fuck? I'll say more good things about it. Fine. I mean, the point of my video was not to, as the point is with all my videos, I just had stuff to talk about that in again, my own personal subjective preference and taste and such. I just had a couple of things to voice. I wasn't telling anyone how to feel. Again, I'll cover all of this in my upcoming video about the difference between subjective and objective, but there was a reason why I didn't talk as much about things that are obviously really good about the game. Like, if there was something that has already been said about the game, I don't like repeating things that other people have stated already, or that I've seen, like, is a common opinion, right? I don't like... It's not that I'm necessarily going out of my way to be contrarian, but it's just I don't feel the need to say something if everyone already understands it, right? I don't like stating the obvious. So, I could have, in my review... Again, this was not the point of my review. I was not trying to fucking, like, tell you what your purchasing habits should be. I just had some words to say about it. But yeah, I could have said, okay, it's one of the best game like ever, period, for like the amount of value for your dollar. You know, you get so much content and a really good amount of replay value, and there's a million different ways to play the game, and that's fucking great. You know, it has like there's online combat. You can play it with friends. You can do PvP. You have a million different builds and routes that you can do, and gimmicky, like you can do like kind of speed run stuff or have different challenge runs or anything. And that's all great, the case. And for a game as open and with as much chock full content, a lot of people said, because I started the video talking about how I don't usually like design elements in open world games, a bunch of brain-dead idiots that can't actually listen to anything took that and be like, oh, why would you talk about, oh, you hate the game because it's open world? No, I literally said, okay, well, this is my perspective. This is my personal preference that I'm coming into this with, and I said that the open world aspects were actually the most entertaining part of Elden Ring, which speaks a lot for someone like me who fucking hates most open world games. I said that. I fucking said that. I said the best part about it is the exploration and discovery aspect. I said that multiple times. I don't understand how people can, like, take offense at nothing. Like, they think they think there's a war going on that just doesn't exist, man. But yeah, anyways, so let's talk about... First, I'll go through some of these, because there's a lot of replies in here that are, like, trying to combat this statement. And again... This is a meme post, right? So it shouldn't necessarily be taken that seriously, but one could view... Yeah, this meme applies to the online discourse almost perfectly. So it means that this guy is saying that on some level, he's saying that these are legitimate arguments in this meme, even though they're blanket statement straw man fallacies, right? It's basically saying, oh, if you mention this at all, therefore I will assume that you just don't know how to play the game, and I won't listen to your actual argument. That is the straw man, like, blanket statement fallacy going on here. So, to rationalize, I don't think all of these, like, I think there are probably a shitload of people that use arguments that are very similar to these terms that I would not agree with. You know, they're like people that are saying stupid shit that's about this. So here, let's go through and I'll point out the things I think are stupid. Elden Ring difficulty is based more on the fact that sometimes if you make just one mistake, you're dead. Even at soft-capped vigor and good equipment, the bosses feel designed around the idea that everyone will use spirit summons, and honestly, that's an issue. Okay, a couple of different things. Honestly, that's an issue. Again, we already talked about it, but this is subjective. It's really weird when, okay, sometimes people like trying to separate, and they're like, okay, well, here's my subjective, like, here's the position I have that's subjective, but then here's the position I have that's objective. And like they try to make a difference between the two when all of it is subjective, because it's all about subjective comments. It's all an opinion. People do not understand what subjective means. But yeah, okay. So that is subjective, and he didn't say that it is objective strictly, but it kind of can sound like... Now, I don't want to assume, you know, unless they say, oh, this is my objective, you should feel this way, other people should agree with me and feel the same way as I do. Unless someone says something like that, I would give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they do understand the things they are saying are subjective opinions. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on this and say that he understands this is a subjective take. But beyond that, bosses feel designed around the idea that everyone will use spirit summons. I don't really agree with that. I think the only... I mean, obviously, Radahn has the summoning mechanic built into his fight. Literally, I played this game completely blind. I did not look up anything while I was still playing for, like, most of my playthroughs. My first 3 playthroughs, I was not in the community whatsoever. So, because I did not use summons at all, I did not even know that Radahn's fight had that mechanic, like, had a unique mechanic related to summoning until I started looking at people talking about it the game on Twitter. Because I just didn't use it, so I didn't know there was a difference. But yeah, bosses feel designed around the idea that everyone will use spirit summons. I don't think that's the case, because I think way more of the game, I would say, is designed around not using spirit summons. Because if you do use spirit summons, it really kind of the combat encounter feels kind of broken in that sense. Like it's not even a real moveset. It's just kind of like clunky, and you can just kind of steamroll things. Hang on. I'm drinking from an entire carton of milk. Delicious. Okay. Elden Ring so I don't agree with this. I think it's... Elden Ring difficulty is based more on the fact that sometimes if you make just one mistake, you're dead. It depends on what he means by this. I think I disagree with this. I think this would be kind of dumb. But I did say in my review that I said that it feels kind of weird in certain instances because it feels like most of some of the fights are incredibly easy until you hit like one thing that kills you, you know? So it kind of feels like, okay, for instance, let's say you have a boss run and the boss run itself, you know why people don't like boss runs? I got this drawing. So let's say the boss room was over here, you respawn here, whatever. You have, hey, it's our boy. Fuck yeah. And there's like a huge level with like, oh, this path, oh, make this jump, whatever. Oh, from this platform to this platform. And there's like, oh, enemies, but you can generally run by them. Maybe you'll get clipped by a couple guys here and there, enemies. And then you make it all the way to the boss room again. And every time you die at this boss, you have to do this run. Now, obviously we have to take a step back and think that, okay, well, all of the bosses in the games have this mechanic. You know, they all have a boss run. If you die, you have to restart from the beginning. I mean, most video games work like that. You know, you have a checkpoint that you respawn back at, so if you die, you restart at a certain position. The problem with this comes in if you have a really long boss run. The problem is not that you have to redo something every single time, because obviously you're already redoing something every single time you try the boss. The problem is if this boss run is boring and easy, then it's just a period of time that you spend just being bored and wasting your time until you get to the thing that's actually fun and it's like taking your attention. Now, I said that a lot of the bosses and stuff are like easy to the point that they are like they feel like a boss run. They feel like you're just like, okay, when I was doing runs on Melania, for example, and okay, let's say the first time I played the game, I didn't understand how to deal with waterfowl at all. You know, I couldn't even accidentally survive it. So on my first run of the game, I would get to a point where I would be fighting the boss for like, I don't know, like a minute, 2 minutes or something, but that's like a minute or 2 minutes of basically a boss run. It's easy. It feels like a waste of time because it's not engaging me, and I'm just waiting to get to the part that is actually the problem, you know, the thing that will kill me. So that was my criticism. I was like, a lot of the things feel like the aspect of the fight that will kill you is kind of, it's like circumstantial, you know, like you happen to get put in this. I don't want to say happen to get put, because I'm not trying to imply that the game is fundamentally unfair, which is an assumption that people made that was incorrect about my review. But like, okay, say big fire giant guy, he shoots like he shoots 2 blasts at you in some circumstance, maybe accidentally got clipped by some attack. You know, mistakes happen. You can't automatically assume that like a normal reasonable player is going to no-hit run the entire game, right? So hits will happen. We have to just accept that. For the record, I don't have a problem with if the game was literally just instant kills the entire way through. I fundamentally don't have an issue with all hits do 100% damage and instantly kill you. I really don't mind that, because that's just like the game deciding its difficulty level. So if its difficulty level is like super high up like this, well, that's fine, you know? It's so long as it's not fundamentally unfair, I don't have an issue with that. But let's take, this is an example that I gave in my, okay, first let's go back to the fucking tweet. So this one I think is dumb and I don't agree with. Unavoidable damage exists. One-shots exist. Well, that's, I mean, you can die in what, like if you get knocked off a ledge, that's a one-shot. But I don't care about one-shots existing. Other than that, though, I generally don't think there's a lot of one-shots in the game. There are certain hits that, like, if you get hit by this thing, okay, so there's like two enemies, and they both hit you at like the same time, right? Or those glitched out blood dogs that will instant kill you. Those guys are pretty funny. But let's say two enemies. One guy has a really strong attack. Let's say he has this hat, and he has like he has big Sora shoes. So those are enemy type A and B, and they both have attacks, and they're both kind of in the same area. Right? So neither one of them on their own has a one-shot, but if one of them hits you in this circumstance and the other one also does their attack and hits you at the same time, it'll like add up to completely killing you. That will happen. So in that sense, there are one-shots in the sense that you will be hit by certain things that will guaranteed continue to hit you until you're dead from full health. So that can happen. So there are one-shots that exist in that sense and in a couple of other senses, but generally, but I don't really care about that as much. My main problem with that is just like risk reward, you know, like which I guess we'll talk about now with the RNG. Melania's RNG. I mean, everything is RNG, but or sometimes. Okay, well, let's go back it. No, let's. Okay, this is kind of dumb. This is a take that I've seen that people have been using in a misunderstood way. The fact that people are doing no-hit level 1 runs of the game shows people are just not willing to get good. Now, the funny thing about this is that he says that some people are doing no-hit level 1 runs, which means that he himself has not done a no-hit level 1 run. Which means that by his own metric, he is also not willing to get good at Elden Ring, if that's his argument. That you can do a no-hit level 1 run and not run into any of these things that some people perceive as problems, right? So, the vast majority of people, like normal players in a normal game, himself included, are not doing this. I don't think he probably even knows how to do this. So let's talk about that concept. No-hit level 1 run. Okay, well, it very much depends on the run type that people are doing. If people are going to game start to credits, it depends on if it's a glitch or glitchless run, but let's assume it's a glitchless run. I don't think anyone has done an all bosses no-hit run. Wait. No, maybe someone did. I feel like I saw a headline somewhere saying they did all bosses no-hit. Or it might have just been a new speedrun record. I completely forget. I honestly don't know. But whatever. So let's say they're just trying to go, okay, well, they have a certain route that they're going to take, and they have very specific, like, it's planned ahead of time. You know, it's not necessarily fair to take someone who has a very specific route in mind and use it to apply to the entire game. For instance, what if a... Hold on. Okay, for instance, now I will admit I also do not know the answer to this question, but Elden Beast, right? He has a sword, whatever. So Elden Beast, right? Now, He has a move, and this is just one example, but it's the most prominent example that just pops up in my mind. He has a move where he puts like Elden Star, and he puts like this thing that constantly just tracks you around, this little thing, and it just shoots out damage constantly. Not a lot of damage, but just small amounts of damage, and it just constantly follows you. It's constantly tracking your exact position. Even if you're like sprinting and dodging and stuff, it's usually pretty difficult to get it off of you. Now, I do not know if there is a way to avoid this. I've never found it. I never had to find it, because Elden Beast is not a particularly hard boss. A lot of people complain about this boss, but I don't think he's that hard to kill. The hardest time I had with Elden Beast is on my last playthrough, my 6th playthrough, where I was doing a faith holy damage run, and that really does like shit damage to Radagon and Elden Beast, so I had a bit of a struggle there. But so yeah, when he does Elden Star, I don't know what the solution is. I don't know how someone avoids that. I don't know if you can stop him from using the move in the first place, although I kind of don't think you can stop him from doing it if his RNG makes him do this move, because even if it's determined by like your actions, your positioning towards him, he generally controls a lot of his positioning by ducking under and appearing somewhere else in the level, right? So regardless of how it works, I don't think that there's a way to avoid the damage from this move if he does it. He doesn't always do it, right? He does it like, I don't know, maybe half the time, maybe a little bit less. He'll do it in like a run, and if you kill him faster, see, that's the thing, is that people who have optimized like their damage output don't have to deal with the RNG for as frequently, right? So their RNG is significantly better because the fights end so much faster because they've optimized how to kill them in like half a minute. And if they've optimized how to like keep a boss in like constant stagger states and stuff that interrupt their moves, that also, so there's a big difference between someone like killing a boss really quickly by optimizing versus like some normal guy with like a normal pretty low damage output or whatever fighting a boss for like 4 minutes. So the longer the fight goes on and the less you're optimized in how your weapon and moveset and build and everything else can shred through their health bar and deal staggers to interrupt their actions and stuff, the less you automatically just know about that and is built into your build, then the more you're going to run into RNG, because the longer the fight will last. So I've never found this to be a particularly good argument against stuff like this. No hit level 1 runs. Now, this does not mean, another thing about this is that does not mean that they are free from RNG, right? Like, if I complete a run of a boss and I don't get hit once, that doesn't mean that RNG isn't necessarily a factor. It just means that I didn't get bad RNG. So if I fight Elden Beast and he never does Elden Stars, I can't say that, oh, I can beat him every single time and take no damage, because I still don't know how to deal with Elden Stars. I mean, I know how to deal with it, but I would still take some damage from it. I would just try to optimize and get around, or choose my attack choices around trying to deal a stagger so that I can enter an invincible animation so that I can avoid taking some damage during that period of time that the Elden Stars is out. Whatever. That's how I would handle it, but I would still take some damage from it. I don't know how to deal with it in a way that I take absolutely no damage. I don't honestly think that's possible. It might be, but I just don't know. I don't think it is. Maybe there's like a projectile reflector thing that makes it so you negate all the damage. I don't know. But the point is, if I did a run of Elden Beast where he never did Elden Stars and I got a no-hit run, I still couldn't use that to say that RNG is not a factor, because that was a run where I got good RNG. The same applies to a whole run of the game. You know, speedrunners, just because speedrunners can beat the game really fast, or any game ever, does not mean that, like, lots of speedruns, like the fucking famous Wind Waker one, where Link, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, where Link is dealing with that stupid fucking the barrier skip I think they eventually resolved it now, but there's the famous speedrunning documentary video thing on YouTube about barrier skip in Wind Waker, and then after they got to skip barrier earlier in the game than they're supposed to, they had no means of getting up to this ledge while alive. So they would die and do like a zombie hover up to this ledge, but they had to break a pot with a fairy in it. And then the fairies would float up like, ooh. And then you had to do the zombie hover, and you had to do it really well so you would get on the exact position, but you're dead. So your zombie hover is your only form of movement. You have to get up into the loading zone, right here, loading zone. And the fairies have to just touch you so that you revive so you're not dead, so you can enter the loading zone. And that's your only way to progress to the end of the game. Okay? That is super RNG based, and that like destroyed the run for a while. Like nobody wanted to do that run of the game because the percent chance, because the fairies' movements when they fly up is totally random. So the percent chance that you will complete that run is really small. You can do the entire thing perfectly every time, but when you hit that point, the run sucks because of RNG. Now, I don't know how much RNG impacts a no-hit level 1 run of the game. I really don't. And I don't know if RNG makes it harder or makes it sometimes impossible. For example, I don't know if it's impossible to deal with Elden Stars or not in a no-hit run. But RNG, that's the other thing, is that RNG is not just like whether something is possible or not. It's not just binary, right? So I said I would be fine if the entire game was just one-hit kills, if it was designed around that and it wasn't fundamentally unfair. I would be totally fine if the game was just one-hit kills. But if it's not, if the difficulty is like around here, but randomly the difficulty can be around here, it doesn't mean that it's impossible. It doesn't mean that it's unfair, like you can't do it if you get bad RNG. But it does mean that RNG impacts the difficulty. Right? All games have RNG. The game has RNG. Like, that's not a debatable thing. Like, it's a video game. Most video games have RNG. Most video games have random elements, like their enemy AI is going to take their actions depending on RNG, and some of their attacks that they might do are easier to deal with than others. That's just a fact of life. It doesn't mean that it's unfair, that you can't deal with it in any way, but it just means that there is RNG, and that can impact the experience and the what happens. That's just a fact. So this statement, Melania's RNG, is really stupid. I think I know what he means. Like, I think he thinks that Melania has, like, more RNG, like, RNG impacts it in a worse way than other bosses. He's probably thinking about the tendency of Melania to do waterfowl dance. Versus, okay, there's an example that I did in my Elden Ring review where I said that Melania has a move. What does her fucking stupid face mask look like? Alright, so there's a move that Melania does, this like twirling knee attack, right? This twirling knee attack. She advances at you. It's usually based on, so if she's like walking towards you at like a modest like pace, like not a full sprint, but like a jog or whatever. Although it might be the fastest she can move on the ground with just her feet, but whatever. Sometimes when you're just attacking her, it's a reversal option that she'll do because it's totally armored. You can't knock her out of it except for when you trigger a stagger, obviously. I mean, you can knock anyone out of anything if you trigger a stagger. So, she has this twirling knee attack, and that puts you into like fucking like 2 seconds of hit stun if it hits you. Now again, it's not unfair because it's like, okay, well, you got hit. Again, I would be fine if this move literally instant killed you. I don't care. That's like, it's not unfair. It's fine. But sometime, so that would put the difficulty at here, where it's like, okay, just never get hit by this move. And again, that's fine. If the game wants to be like that, that's fine. But my point is that the way the game is currently designed is very inconsistent, right? Because if she hits you with that move, sometimes the difficulty of that will be here, based on her RNG. on what she does immediately afterwards, which is totally RNG based because it's not positional based. You're in the same position at every single time. So if she does this knee attack and hits you, sometimes she has a sword swipe that goes straight up like that, and it's super fast. I think it's her fastest attack. Whereas she also has like a sword swipe that goes like slash slash, like horizontal, like back and forth. So this is like to the ground, like that's the slash straight upwards. Right. So anyways, what was I going to say? Right. When she hits you with a knee attack, it's an armor move, and it does, if this is your health bar, right, at like 50 or 60 vitality or vigor or whatever it's called, it does about this damage. It's one of her lowest damage attacks, okay? So it's an armor move that she will bust out if you keep swinging at her. So she has a couple of moves that she'll bust out if she keeps swinging at her, like most enemies in FromSoft games do. Most bosses or tough enemies or whatever. So she'll have... Actually, most enemies in this game, like, period, have reversal actions. Even fucking dogs have reversal actions for when you attack them. But... So, it does this much of your life bar. It does that much damage. One of her lowest damaging moves. However, it puts you into a lot of hit stun. Now, her follow-up attack can either be this, or she has, like, some other stuff she can do. I forget which other move specifically. She might be able to do her big lunging stab thing afterwards. She might do her big charge. I forget. But the point is, there's a certain % chance that she will do this attack. And this attack is so fast that it will combo off of your 2 seconds of hit stun. Which means that if you get hit by the knee attack, this fast attack that hits before your hit stun ends is unavoidable. It's just a combo. That's what a combo is. Which means that the damage that you took, based purely on RNG, the % chance that this move will happen is what determines whether or not you take this much damage or this much damage. This is the difference determined by the RNG, which is the % chance of this move happening immediately after she lands this spinning knee attack. That is the difference that is determined by RNG. That's a fact. Now, yes, again, I think it's fine. Just don't get hit by this move. I don't disagree with that. I'm fine with that. I would be fine if the knee just instant killed you, like I said. But the fact of the matter is, RNG does determine the difference between you taking this much damage and you taking this much damage off of getting hit by the same move. That is a clear instance of RNG having a rather substantial difference in the level of difficulty of an individual moment. So yes, RNG exists. You can't say it doesn't exist. It's a factor in the game. RNG is in most video games. It's just a matter of whether or not it's, like how to deal with it and what results it have and how it's balanced and stuff. And I am of the opinion that I don't think that difference is necessarily that good. I don't like that that's determined by RNG. In that circumstance, I feel that, you can just helplessly get hit by the second attack just because she has a % chance to do a follow-up that will combo you and deal even more damage than you already took, purely based on RNG. I would literally rather her always do that follow-up attack and always take off that much of your health. I would prefer that than... I would prefer it just being set on its hardest setting possible, rather than have it be sometimes you get piss cake easy shit and sometimes you get ass blasted. I would prefer to always be ass blasted. So, this, again, it's just my opinion. Again, subjectivity, design, whatever. It's just my opinion. I'm not telling other people, we have to understand what a subjective take is, but I don't think it's logical to say that all discussions of RNG are just like, oh, get good, whatever, scrub fucker. No, I just don't think it's necessarily that good, well implemented in certain cases, in certain instances. I had a whole video on my fucking... Okay, there's another thing that honestly my mistake, where in my Elden Ring review, I didn't provide that many visual examples of certain things. The only thing I provided clear visual examples for, and I didn't even provide that many, was for how the game will lock you out of your dodge input while your character is doing a movement animation of turning their feet, and it negates your ability to dodge. I showed that in video clips, and as far as I've seen, no one who's bitched and moaned about my video has fought me on that point, so... But yeah, blah, 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 AoE spam. Okay, I had a minor take about this. This is what I tweeted. I said that, to be fair, the moves that you can or cannot jump over are often pretty unclear. They're melee attacks and stuff that you can jump over, but then some of them look like you can, but you can't. Or Radigan has ground wave attacks that you can't jump over. Like, so that's... I showed that in my video. I showed several instances of, like, me jumping over something that clearly looks like it was a ground attack that you should be able to jump over, but it just kind of... It has a really weird hitbox interaction, and your character just kind of, like, hits an invisible wall and goes flying. You know, if you try to jump over the attack. But, yeah. So, I don't... But that's not, again, that's not an instance of fairness. That's just an instance of, I don't think the game communicates this particularly well. I don't think it's very clear about what your options are or are not, or it's very good at leading you to the learning process. Because the learning process is the entire game. So, yeah, everything is subjective. They're all fucking just opinions. So it's immediately personal preference anyways. RNG exists in every game, and sometimes it can be handled better or worse. And that's just, again, another subjective take. I don't have any issue with this. I would never criticize a one-shot. I don't care about how hard the game is. I just care about, like the consistency of its design elements. Jump doesn't work for Radic. See, Elden Ring. This wasn't even what he was talking about, so this is just like random takes that Joseph Anderson's review. Again, a very reasonable... God, I didn't even know. I haven't seen the public reaction to Joseph Anderson's review, which I thought was a very reasonable breakdown. Again, I mean, this is kind of the same thing with like the... And I'll talk about that in my subjective versus objective video, but like the Sonic 2 thing with like Arlo just posted a video, a clearly subjective video where he's just like, I just didn't enjoy Sonic 2, and people are like, oh my god, this person, why they're allowed to exist? What a fucking idiot. I can't believe this person's allowed to live and not like the Sonic 2 movie. What a fucking bastard. Joseph Anderson, again... another person who literally blatantly just said, like I did, the game is good, I liked it, it's a good game, but I had some criticisms of it, and I'm not, like, sucking its dick every fucking second and worshipping the ground. It's a game. It's literally nothing exists that is above criticism or completely perfect. You fucking idiots. Elden Stars... Nihil, I believe, is... No. I never did it myself, but I know you can minimize the damage. I think that's how it works. You take the, physic that helps you against the blood guy, and, it, like, reduces the damage. Okay, well, at least this guy's like, okay, you just aren't good enough, then neither am I. See, fair point. I like that he's admitting that he's not one of these people that he's referencing. Like, I find it so weird because it's very bizarre to, like, take some example of, like, some person that you can't replicate and 99% of the player base is not doing, and then say, oh, this should apply to all people. Like, if I criticize something and I'm like, yeah, I'm a normal person and I just didn't enjoy this that much, and people are like, oh, well, that's your fault because you're not literally 0.1% of the population that is doing this. What? Now, I would like... Okay. Waterfowl Dance is one that I don't like talking about because it is one that I am fairly ignorant on with the top-level strats. When I first played through the game, I developed a way to avoid the damage 100%, but it required me using my shield. I did not find a way to 100% negate it in all circumstances. Okay, that's not true. So, if you keep, like, a distance from the boss, right? If you keep a distance from the boss, you can see when she does it, you can run away from it, and then you can dodge the next 2 parts, no problem. I haven't seen Let Me Solo Her or any other player do it. I really don't care enough because, again, this is not like something I'm really particularly passionate about. It was just a passing annoyance that I had. I'm not like... I liked the game overall. It was just like minor gripes and stuff that I had that like sullied my experience. And I just said that I wasn't like loving it as much as other people online seemed to be. I was just having some fun with it, but I wasn't like head over heels with it. That was my only position. It wasn't even an argument. It wasn't an argument because I'm not arguing with anyone, because I'm not telling anyone else that their opinions are wrong, which is the fucking stupidest part of this. And again, nobody understands the difference between subjective and objective, but whatever. So yeah, if you keep a distance between the boss, a certain distance, Melania will do the move, and then you can avoid it, and then whenever. I believe there's like some level of time, like she can't do the move twice in a row. I believe there's some time gap where she can't do it. T equals FU. So I believe there's a time gap where she can't do it. Now, so once her health bar on the first phase gets to like here, she's almost guaranteed to do it, very likely to do the move. And then after a certain amount of time or some actions or something that I don't exactly understand how to predict it next, but then you need to start. But then if you keep your distance from her the entire time, that kind of, as far as I'm aware, and as far as I would approach it if I were going to try to no-hit... See, this is something that I talked about in my Dark Souls 3 review, which was linked to my Elden Ring review, because I mentioned it, and all of my points still carried over, basically. And that was my main problem. I was going to say, because my Dark Souls 3 review, it's not even a review. It's just, like, I didn't even call it a review. It was just, like, talking about some of these concepts just using Dark Souls 3. But in my Dark Souls 3 video, I did provide much more, like, video evidence of exactly what I was talking about. Which is why I should have linked it to my Elden Ring review, so that people who are complaining that I didn't provide examples would be able to watch that instead. Because it covers a lot of the things that I talked about. But yeah, there are some instances where there are 2 ways of fighting a boss, right? You have a way that is guaranteed to not take damage, and you have a way that is more or you have a completely safe, like, golden way, play it totally straight, don't take any risks, take no damage, or you have a way that's like you're taking some risks here and there, you're playing with RNG a bit and whether or not you'll get hit by this follow-up or this attack. And these are like generally the 2 ways of fighting enemies. Now, my main thing with both this and Dark Souls 3 and such is that in all the previous games, I would just do this. I would do this method. I would do the guaranteed no hits run. But in Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring, I prefer in many instances doing this because I don't find this route to be very fun. That's not to say that you can't do it. I just find doing it to be more annoying. So that was never my point, that you can't do something completely perfectly. I just find it kind of obnoxious to do so. So, but then if I do this route and I get randomly hit by things because I'm taking risks, I'm not doing it completely safe. Like, the difference between these things is what I am complaining about. So, for instance, in this instance with Melania, like, as far as I'm aware, and I could be totally wrong because I don't know how players are doing this, no hit, But as far as I'm aware, if there is a threat, if the time zone is up, and there is a possibility that Malenia will do Waterfowl, then, as far as I know, that just means that you can't punish any of her attacks. Like if she does her big stab, like, oh, shing, 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 and then whiffs, and then you dodge roll to the right or whatever, and then, like, but it's like then I wouldn't be able to do a jump attack immediately on her. I don't think, because what if she goes into Waterfowl right afterwards? Well, now I'm right next to her. I don't have the time or space to get away from it. I believe I read that there is a way to avoid Waterfowl point blank by doing a weird, like, lock-on gimmick by going underneath her. But it's pretty awkward, and it's not, like, I don't think it would be very intuitive or, like, intended by the game design. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I read that somewhere. But anyways, so using the normal method, what most people who defend the Waterfowl attack say is, oh, just keep your distance. In that circumstances, I believe that they're implying, or I believe that if you're going to keep your distance at all times, then you can't punish her attacks, which means that you just have to keep avoiding her and avoiding her and avoiding her and avoiding her until she does Waterfowl. And then, I believe, as far as I would approach it, if I were trying to no-hit her, that's how I would play it. Because I don't know any other way to do it other than just never interacting with the boss until she does Waterfowl. I mean, maybe you can, like, if you're a sorcerer and you can do damage to her from range after you avoid her attacks, that's another story entirely. But if you're a pure melee build, I don't know how you would approach it other than just never damaging the boss until she does Waterfowl. And the problem with that is, again, what I talked about with the boss run shit, you know? Where it's like, I don't want to do a 6-minute boss run from respawning just running to a boss room, you know, every single time. It's boring and a waste of my time. So if I'm doing nothing but just avoiding the attack, never progressing the fight until she randomly decides to do Waterfowl, that's just me being bored to death, man. That's just boring. That's why I don't like the no-hit run, like the way you do no-hit runs. Okay, like I said, there's two ways to do no-hit runs. One way is you've optimized your damage output so much that you can just shred the boss like it's nothing. It's fine. The other way is if you're just a normal player who's just developed whatever build you happen to develop in your playthrough. You have like a totally normal damage output and stagger output and whatever, but you also want to fight a boss and never take any damage. That's a different story. You know, that can sometimes lead to some really boring methods where for you to take absolutely zero risk, you have to play in a really boring-ass way where you basically are doing nothing half the time. That's why I don't like doing it, and I prefer doing the clunky, shitty, risk-taking stuff just because it kills the boss faster. Sometimes. Like, and it like I said, it's very build-dependent. But that was my explanation. That's my reasoning. So that's why I don't like stuff like Waterfowl. It's not because it's fundamentally unfair, like you can't avoid it, but I feel like the method of avoiding it is obnoxious and tedious and unfun. A lot of unavoidable stuff. Elden Star. So this guy only defended. Let's see what they said about Elden Stars. I'm very curious. Elden Star. Okay, he said Elden Stars is not unavoidable. But can you explain Elden Star? Okay. You still take damage. If it launches the attack and you're moving towards a sign, you can time the rolls to completely avoid it. So I don't know if that's situational dependent. I don't know if he's even telling the truth or not, or if that is consistent or not. Can you explain? Let's see if anyone else tried to explain it. I'm very curious. Run counter to the stars in a circle. It'll try to follow you, but you're just constantly running the opposite from it. And that will negate 100% of the damage? Yeah, this is the thing that I've heard about this, is it doesn't totally negate the damage. Now, that should be the other statement, is I'm not even necessarily against that. I'm not even necessarily against unavoidable damage. I mean, I play plenty of video games where there is unavoidable damage. If you play like a turn-based RPG, you take your turn, the enemy takes their turn, they hit you. You can't avoid that damage. You just have to manage your stats and your RNG and your advantages better so that you kill them before they kill you. That's how games work. So, again, I'm not fundamentally opposed to even the concept of unavoidable damage. I'm just like, certain instances, like I said, with the balancing, you know, RNG determines whether you take a little fraction of damage or a huge amount of damage in a situation where you can't, there's not that much nuance to the RNG. It's just whether or not she decides to do that attack immediately after hitting you with the knee. I actually don't mind Elden Beast. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I was just so, like I said in my review, I was just so kind of like tired of not even tired, but I just found it a bit disappointing that the vast majority of bosses in oh my god, Elden Ring, Jesus, that the vast majority of bosses in Elden Ring, I did also feel like yeah. It kind of felt like they wanted Torrent to be in them. This is an acceptable boss to not like. Okay. It's acceptable to have that opinion. So yeah, these are all things that are determined by RNG. It doesn't mean that you die if you get bad RNG, but RNG can determine how much time you waste, like how annoying the fight is, how obnoxious it is. Like RNG can make it more or less fun or just more inconsistent, which is the point that I feel like plenty of other people are trying to make. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I had. I don't, I never said anything was unavoidable because I was aware that even the things that I don't know how to avoid, there is probably methods I'm not aware of for doing it, and I don't really care that much. I just found it, obnoxious. Like, in those instances, if something seems like it's unavoidable, but it is avoidable, I wouldn't be complaining that it's unavoidable. I would be more inclined to complain about the game communication, because I would look at it and say, I don't know how you want me to deal with this game. Like, logically speaking, I've played all of these games countless times, and I understand, like, the basic strategies and stuff in mind for various situations, and I look at the situation, and I really don't see a good idea against it. So it's like, if you can really avoid Elden Stars by just, like, running in a certain angle counter to its movement or something, even though it's just, like, a fucking floating orb that just follows you, I don't know. Like, that would not be my inclination for how to avoid it. I would just be like, wow, this shit really just follows you, huh? So, like I said, my complaint in that circumstances would more be about the game not being very clear in its communication, which was most of my complaints in my video. Like how I complain about the animations with all the really long wind-ups to attacks. I don't complain about it because you have to time a dodge correctly. I complain about it because I think the game communication is bad. And again, when I say bad, it's a subjective concept, so that is my personal opinion and personal preference, obviously. What the fuck?